About ready to start? Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome everybody. And Miss Amanda, Miss Amanda can't be here, but Ed can't be here, but we're glad y'all are here. Mr. Tim Donald's here visiting. And with that, we'll begin. Let's look at the old minutes and take a second to read those and see if we approve them.
Don't know what I did. That just is voting.
It said voting.
There we go. Howard, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
One correction.
Is that correct?
My name's not listed on members present. Sandra Grove. I was here last month. Sorry, I was here last month, yeah. You're too quiet.
So we need a motion to amend or just administratively do that?
No, it'd be a motion to amend as well. You know, approve the minutes with the changes noted.
Okay,
As, yeah, okay. That was a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
You first did it.
I'm first, okay.
and then with the stipulation of amending
Yeah.
the attendance. Cool, okay.
Sir,
Yep.
we just still need a second on that, and we need to vote on it.
All right, sorry. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. We have a motion and a second to amend the minutes according to attendance. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of amending the minutes and approving them with the amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. It passes, thank you. We have number 3, citizen comments. We have one citizen here, but we'll save him for the number 7. We'll postpone number 5 or table it until Miss Amanda can be here. She had an unavoidable, unchangeable event tonight, so she couldn't make it. And with that, we'll move to,
Mr. Glenn, if I may.
Sorry.
Just procedurally, can't table it. We can address it right now. We can talk about it for a moment, but if you're in table, we gotta go motion and voting kind of thing. So you can just go ahead and, if you'd like to, mention that we do have a new member, and then we'll welcome her the next time, and if anybody else says anything.
right. We do have a new member, Miss Amanda Callahan. She's also, she was instrumental in the Food Summit, and she's probably on the Food Policy Council, I believe, or will be. And we look forward to having her serve. She will be an asset, valuable asset. So we'll welcome her properly next meeting. Development standards. Mr. Adam, would you talk about that?
Sure, so what I've included in your backup material is what is currently before the planning commission. And the reason why Mr. Glenn put it on the agenda, and so we could just look at it, is that, hold on, let me get to it. Is that there's been, Coney County's growing. There's no doubt in that. And in order to kind of be more, neighborly, good neighbor policy kind of thing, the planning commission's looking at having fences or buffers put in between unlike uses. So for instance, if you go put a gas station next to a home, you gotta provide some kind of fence or buffer kind of thing. So on the list, you'll see is the proposed use. So party responsible for installation and maintenance of the screening and buffer. Would be non-residential to business. Multifamily, looking at apartment complexes or condos, multifamily housing. Or mixed use, which tends to be a combination of uses. If it's going in next to ag or residential, they have to put in a buffer or put in a fence. Same thing with a residential subdivision going in next to agriculture, they also would have to put in a buffer or a fence. And then slowly all the way bottom of that is that agriculture and forestry uses as defined by the South Carolina Right to Farm Act and South Carolina Forestry Act are exempt from having to do this. So what this is, it does form a kind of protection for ag and forestry as a whole. And we just wanted to put this out in front of y'all. And if y'all have any input regarding that portion of it, I'm happy to take it back to Planning Commission.
Is that gonna interfere with anything that the state's coming up with?
It would be subordinate to the state if it's less intensive. So for instance, up here we're saying that if you have less than a half acre, you gotta have 5 feet. Well, that's a county one. If the state comes up and says it has to be 50 feet, the state's gonna be more restrictive on that. But it won't be in conflict with it as it will only add to it, what you can and can't do in there, so. And if it does, we'll readdress it.
So what we're saying then, Adam, is if the state comes up with another buffers or setbacks, which is, that the county would change and go with the state regulations, or would we just do our own?
No, so let's say the state says 50 feet, we say 5 feet.
Yeah,
In those, we would still be able to have that 5-foot buffer. And all these rules and regulations, they're in here.
Right.
So we're saying a minimum 6-foot wall, fence or berm, we're saying 5 feet of space, and in that you can have ag plantings, stormwater, things of that nature. So our little portion of it would still exist. But if it had to be 45 feet wider, then it would be 45 feet wider, and the state would manage that. We would manage the 5 feet, the state would manage the 45 feet.
okay, gotcha.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the part where you say parking lot stub outs,
Mm-hmm.
explain that to me.
Sure, so because everything's not going in next to ag or not going in next to unlike uses, so if I had, let me think here, where sure, so Walmart, right? Y'all familiar with Walmart in the county? There's a big piece of property next to it, and let's say that property next to them wants to, say it's another strip mall, some kind of commercial strip mall, and they want to have the linkage with Walmart. So they can put a stub out, which all that is, it's a driveway to nowhere. And then they can get with Walmart and they say, hey, can we link up? And so what it provides is for connectivity in between parcels and keeps more curb cuts from happening. So what we're saying is that, hey, if you and your neighbor want to get together and have, connectivity, you can do that. We're saying, yeah, go for that.
Okay. I was thinking about it the other way around, but okay. Or none. I got you.
Right, but like if it was coming into like a housing, like if you had a farm and then somebody put Walmart next to it and they go to put a stub out into the buffer, like it's not, like yes, you could do it, but that would be it'd be pointless because it's not coming into the property. And that's why it says not parking lots, just the stub out for it.
Okay. I got you. What about the permitted signage is, y'all have changed that a little bit, hadn't you? Are you working on that?
I believe currently in front of council, there is a signage ordinance that is changing what our current one is. And I believe that they're looking at addressing and exempting agriculture in that as well. But I'll definitely get you all a copy of that for the next meeting.
Because I heard, I listened in on the one about the billboards,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that one, but I hadn't heard for other type of signage.
So the permitted signage would just be like your normal, Eat at Joe's kind of commercial signage.
Right. And right now, it really doesn't have any kind of limitations or on it, I guess, or whatever. It's,
We do have a sign code, we do have some,
but I mean, it's pretty,
governance.
you know,
Sorry, ma'am?
it's pretty, it doesn't have much teeth in it, I guess.
Laissez-faire, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. So the current, the sign code is gonna be before planning commission, county council on Tuesday, the 21st. I believe it's on there, I'll double check.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure it is. Has some more governance. to
okay.
it. So this is just, this thing right here is gonna have a second, planning commission will see this at least twice more. Once like this, and then once again to kind of vote to send it to council. Do you all have any thoughts, opinions, otherwise, in regard to the agricultural portions of this, exempting ag from it and providing some minimum buffers in between whatever's coming in next to ag and fences coming in next to ag as well? Is there any sort of thoughts from the ag board regarding that?
I think this is a good thing, going along with kind of what we've talked about before. And then, we'll be, go along with what the state's trying to do as well.
Sure.
I think it's good that we're shown, we're considered, agriculture is considered in this wording, and it sounds like it might be a good thing. So,
No, I don't need a motion or anything unless y'all feel compelled to send something to planning commission, as far as
Support.
additions or things of that nature, then this is just, you're receiving this just for informational purposes at the moment.
would they like our support in some sort of way?
If you all wanna send some kind of letter in support of this in regards to the agricultural purpose of it, you're certainly welcome to. That would require a motion and a vote and someone to write a letter and send it to them. But yeah, that's completely up to y'all, or you can wait until it goes to council. In what form it goes to council, that may be, another way, and we'll have a meeting before that.
I think we ought to wait till it goes to council. That way we got time to look at this and think about it a little more. Would be, that gives us time to think about what the state's getting ready to do, and I think it's a great thing, the setbacks and all. And if anybody can't go with that setbacks and what this is, that's very reasonable, I think. So, if we wait till, it goes through council, and if they ask for our input on this, we can send a letter in. I think that's what we were doing. That way we got time to look at it a little bit more.
And if it changes or anything, they tweak it in any way, you will let us know to give us more time to look over.
I should be able to send you all, a copy of it after, so the next planning commission meeting is Monday.
Okay.
So I'll get with, should be able to get you something next week sometime.
How about if we had somebody at the planning commission to support it?
That's what I was thinking, if someone or some people showed up there just to say, hey, we support it, or we're
Or let
listening.
people come?
At the moment, we're still open to the public,
Okay.
but public. So we're still allowed to at the moment. I think because so for instance, you're saying that somebody should talk to the planning commission, we're all saying that we should go to council. Let's just go ahead and figure out which way you all wanna go with that.
Said the meeting's next Monday night?
Monday night, correct, the 20th.
20th, 2 Monday nights, okay.
No, it's this coming Monday. So the question is, since it will still get talked about and edited down at the planning commission meeting, did you want until it gets sent to council? or did you want to go to the planning commission with it? I think the council is the more powerful of the two bodies, but that's certainly up to y'all.
My opinion would be to see what the final draft is before it goes to council. That way, like
So that would be
he said, then we can look at it, examine it more, know more of where they're headed and how it lines up with the state, because I'm sure there's going to be some changes before it goes to council.
So they should theoretically, planning commission should theoretically on the 3rd of August. August already? Wow. The 3rd of August, get a final copy. We'll go edit it on the 20th, and 2 weeks after that, I should be able to present them with a final version.
And we meet after that, so at that point, we could see, or you could go ahead and send it to us so we would know what we were looking at and what the changes were in comparison.
Correct.
if any.
Now, I couldn't guess to see when council would have it on their agenda. So yeah, I can wait until after it goes to planning commission, gets voted, gets sent to council. I'll send it to y'all after that. That sound good?
That sounds
Yeah.
good.
That sounds good.
All right.
All right, are we done with that? Have a plan? So, House Bill 5306. We have Mr. Tim Donald here that could speak to that a little bit. He's been involved with it. He knows more about it than I do.
Yes, H 5306, I started off as a bill that we've been working on for a couple of years. I know some of you heard of it. We were calling it a reciprocal setback bill at first. I went down there, I guess it was in March, I think Mr. Chumley introduced it end of February. And then it was sent to the
There you go.
Okay. It was sent to subcommittee, and the language was changed multiple times. We burned the midnight oil on a couple of occasions down there. They understood the concept of it. What was happening is existing farms were being squeezed out by encroachment. Particularly in our area, you know how much the poultry business means to Oconee County. Well, the state is the number one farm commodity in the state of South Carolina is poultry. And Oconee County is the number one producer in the state of poultry. So what was happening in a lot of situations where a man would build a poultry farm and start small with the hopes of over time, if his children decided to come back to the farm, or if he had the help, or for future expansion. But in the meantime, if the adjacent property was changed in any kind of way, then your setbacks would change. So for example, if in the mid-90s you built a farm, you built a full-house broiler farm, and you met your setback requirements by getting 400 feet from the property line or whatever, and you obtained a permit to operate, which you have to meet all the requirements to get that permit, and started your operation, and then later on, say your neighbor started a housing development on his property, and he built houses right up on the property line. Well, now if you ever expand, your setbacks just changed from 400 feet to 1,000 feet because those new residents were on the adjacent property. So we went in saying, you know, that people moving into adjacent to a farm, it don't have to be a poultry farm, any kind of animal agriculture requires these setbacks and requires permits to operate from DHEC. So if it be a dairy or a hog or whatever the situation is, we were going to require that those residents set back just like the farmer had to, reciprocal setbacks. We could get no traction with that. We had lawmakers just couldn't believe that we were going to ask people to pay tax on property that they couldn't use the way they see fit. You know, just like we're having to do. So anyway, after a lot of private meetings with some legislators in some meeting rooms, and then coming back to committee, and testifying to committee, the language changed about 3 or 4 times. And finally, what it did was remove the residential setback. In other words, once a farm is established, he's met his setback requirements, he's obtained his operating permit, he's in operation, then no matter what changes to the adjacent property, that farmer's setbacks never change. Once he's established, he's done. If you decide to build a house up on the property, you know that farm's there. You can't expect that farmer to have to sit back farther from you. You know what you're getting into. It's just common sense. And the funny thing about it all is, like I said, I felt like we're getting no traction. I left that last hearing thinking, these people really don't understand what it takes to produce a chicken or a cow or a pig to put on their table. They just don't. Then the shutdown, the coronavirus hit, and the shutdown hit. And the House came back into session for an emergency session just to pass some bills that just had to be passed, or take up some action that had to be done. And Farm Bureau's lobbyist called me up and said, the House is going to take up this 5306 again. And I said, really? I can't believe it. With everything that's going on and all they've got to do, I just couldn't believe they were going to do that. So I ran down to the office and said, is this really going to happen? Is this really going to happen? Yes, it's going to happen. And the last time, it passed 114-0. We got no resistance from it with the new language change. Now, I don't know if that had anything to do with the shelves being empty at the grocery store, because they were at that time, or I don't know. But anyway, it was a unanimous vote, 114-0. Of course, we run out of time for this year. We won't be able to take it back up, but that's pretty good traction to go into with it next year. 114-0 vote's pretty strong. And I know we got a lot of support on the Senate side. I don't know if we got enough, but we got a lot of support. But that's what it's doing. It's just really just protecting existing farms from being squeezed out. And it's happening all over the country. It's just different, regulations that's put into place, and you don't realize it at the time. But then over time, you realize what kind of effect these regulations have. And in this particular case, it was squeezing out farms. It was farmers that had plans of expanding in the future, and then by the time their expansion time came along, they got their first ones paid for, or their son come back from school, or whatever the situation. The neighbors had moved in and changed their setback situations. In a lot of cases, they couldn't meet the requirements anymore. So they either had to live with what they had, sell out, or shut down. A lot of times, farming is like anything else. You have to expand. You have to keep up with the times, or you're not going to make a living. And it's the same way with poultry. It's about the numbers. But anyway, and there's not a lot of new places being established, so we surely got to protect the ones we already have. And that's what 5306 is all about, just farm protection. The language, I think, after going around the world about 3 times with it, and lots of lawyers involved, it came back to just removing that residential setback, which accomplished what we were wanting to accomplish. So, I think it'll pass, but won't be this year, it'll be next session. Before we take it up again. And we do have friends. We have a lot of friends of agriculture in the state house. And Mr. Bill Chumley, which introduced this bill for us, is one of them. Davey Hyatt from Pickens County, he's another one. He's a great supporter of agriculture. He always asks, anytime he can help, he's glad to help. So,
What would you like us to do? Is there anything we can do to assist?
well, we're hoping this is going to pass, and if that passes, then there's nothing we would have to do. But I have talked to some council members about if this doesn't pass, is there anything we could do on the county level? And there seems to be some are thinking that there's a way to do this. I'm not sure of the legalities of it, but, I think there's a way forward, but hopefully it's gonna pass at the state level. And then the county, won't have to be worried about it. Of course, we can't supersede any state regulations, but we can, we could go in and create ordinances, to protect our farms if the state won't. And that's one argument I'm using. I'm saying you're gonna make the counties have to step up and protect our farms, the state not gonna do that. And so I'm trying, every angle to leverage to get protections in for our farms. We've got to start protecting our farms. We're late. We should have been doing this long ago. You know, we try to be good neighbors. Every bill we've introduced, every regulation that's been imposed, we always look at it like, okay, if I was the neighbor, you know, we want to be good neighbors, and we've got to continue to do that. But there comes a time where you got to protect the farm. The neighbors have choices. You can't pick your farm up and move it. So we got to start protecting our existing farms.
Tim, I do know that Georgia has a lot different look on aspect of a farmer than they do in South Carolina. I do know, I've talked to some of the growers over there that does, and when it comes into the farming aspect, for the farmers, the state is more for the farm, keeping that farm going in the yard, that contractor coming in and building a new house. I know their setbacks is handled a lot different. They favor the agriculture more.
Yeah, Georgia don't have a DHEC.
Yeah.
They don't have a state board like we have DHEC. Theirs is all county by county basis.
Yep.
And, yeah, they seem to be a little more ag friendly in some cases. They have some counties that's, you know, tourist and residential and retirement, just like we got, but, you know, we gotta live together and find a happy medium, but we got to protect our agriculture. And local grown is getting more and more important. I mean, you just look at states now with everything that's going on, how different we are. And the ideology of one state versus another can be night and day. So, yeah, I think we all need a strong local agriculture. And that's not just for here, but everybody needs that. And that's gaining ground. I hear every county, at least in my district, which is 13 counties in the upstate, everybody's trying to strengthen their protection for farms and produce and promote locally grown. Promoting and protecting, that's what we've got to do. And educate, because that goes a long ways too. It's a rude awakening when you go to the grocery store and your favorite food items are not on the shelf anymore. Especially when you don't know where they come from, how they're produced. It's just, it's not there anymore. What am I gonna do? But, you know, listening to some of the folks in Columbia, not only do they not go to the grocery store, a lot of them, and buy raw foods to go home and prepare, you know, a lot of them just eat out every meal. And, you know, I can't understand it, but I guess that's the way a lot of people do in the cities. But it started to hit home when the shutdown occurred. People just realized, you know, I just can't run down to the local market and get my favorite food. Then they started to think about where things, and I know at least some of the lawmakers did because they shared that with me. But I appreciate what y'all doing. Not every county has this. More and more counties looking into setting up a committee such as this. And Oconee County started. Well, maybe Charleston.
Charleston. Helped us get started.
We're up there at the top. We appreciate what the planning commission and all the farmers did to help get us activated or formed. So perhaps we could write some senators and encourage them to support the bill. And
Yeah, in any way you can protect it, and not just animal agriculture, but all agriculture. You know, there's getting to be tries for setbacks for certain herbicides and pesticides and things like that's been spread. You know, there's housing developments backing up to 1,000-acre farms in the Midlands and the Low Country, you know, and Dicamba is one of them that's getting a lot of scrutiny now, and so they're starting, some people starting to say, well, we need a 200 or 300 feet setback for this dicamba use and things like that, because it's affecting their flowers or whatever in the subdivisions.
But again, it shouldn't all be on the farmer.
That's exactly right. Well, you take a 200 or 300 foot setback around a 1,000-acre field, well, how much property did you just lose?
Yeah.
You know, lots of acres, so, and that's the education part. Reciprocal setback bill, when it was introduced, you know, it sounds pretty good, it's reciprocal, whatever's good for me is good for you. But when they realized what that entailed, that they were actually gonna have to give up property, then they started looking for other language. And, you know, and that's fine, we don't want nobody to have to give up anything, we just want to be treated fairly. And, so the language, I'm happy with it. It accomplishes what we needed to accomplish, and nobody else has to give up anything. So the property owners moving adjacent to a farm don't have to give up anything. They just have to realize they're moving next to a farm and can't expect that farm to give up anything. So, in a nutshell, that's what it is. I didn't see the new language in this paper here that Adam gave me.
Oh, is this not the most current?
I don't think it's the most current language, but anyway, as you can see, more and more elected officials signed on to that bill after we got it in committee and started discussing it.
Blower switch. Okay, good, thank you, and, I got a comment about that and related to another topic we're coming up to in a minute, but we'll get back to that. I guess I need Mr. Myers. Not that I really want it, but, next item, the reference guide, the resource guide. It's looking good. I think it can be, we can probably find some more things, and we probably need to check it to see if it's, I mean, not that we missed something, but we might want to make sure everything's up to date, like, I think Ms. Ramsey's retired, for instance, under NRCS. That's just one thing that jumped out. But, you know, we can update it, and once we get it 90% or whatever, 95, can we put it on the website and then still make changes as we go?
So what I would think, since this is the first time you all are seeing this as a whole, is that take this month, go through, redline it, and maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a week before the next meeting, y'all get your comments back to me, your edits back to me. I'll fix it in this document or add it. If there's any conflicting information, I'll bring it up at the meeting. Then at that point, we can send it on to council, say, hey, this is something we have, you know, that the ag board has created over the year, help out, and we'll send it to council that way. And then they can choose what to do with it, which may entail putting it on the website.
So this is a really good document. Let's just, like Adam said, go through it one more time, make sure we tighten it up a little bit if we need to, or make any additions. We all know some people that maybe somebody else doesn't know that could be added possibly. We good with that? We don't need a motion, do we?
There's another conversation to be had about it, but, yeah.
Just, let's go over it one more time and bring it back next month with any corrections or additions we want to make. Okay, we good with that? Any discussion? Okay, all right, number 9, the Ag Disclosure Act. In researching for that, I did some research, and I did talk to a couple of council members via phone and email, and one comment was that it might be more powerful if once the council gets on board and get maybe a consensus with other counties, the Association of County Councils, and then if we go to the state, might be a little more powerful that way. But this Disclosure Act is not just for Oconee, it can potentially affect other counties, the whole state. So you have to be thoughtful of the real estate, the business, and like Tim said, be good neighbors, but I think we've been good neighbors for a long time, and just try to make it pleasing enough to all so that it would pass. So, any comments on that, Adam?
So if I may, just so we can let's wrap this kind of brief on this, the purpose of this Ag Disclosure Act would be the same way when you go buy a house, they tell you if there's lead paint, they tell you if there's asbestos. In some place states, it's, North Carolina has about 15 times the amount of disclosures as South Carolina does. And it's not a fee, it's not you can't do this legislation, it is just information, as far as I would see, and then granted, it's up to you, it's just information. You are moving next to a farm. Like before you go to buy this house, when you're doing your 300 pages of paperwork, they say, hey, you're buying next to a farm, you okay with that? And you check off on it. And that's what we're looking at, it would be for the state as a whole, correct?
And one of the comments I got was, well, let's consider if a newcomer is okay with moving in next to an orchard, but the orchard goes out of business and they change to poultry or hogs, is he gonna be in favor of that? And if not, what about it? But in the Right to Farm Act, it says if things change, they still don't have a nuisance leg to stand on. So, but it's something to consider because, we have to get the realtors on board too. And so we would like to talk with our local real estate board commissioner about this at some point and try to get some discussion going.
So, if I may, so the next step would be probably talking to the real estate commission people. Is that, as I believe it was yourself, Mr. Hollifield, Mr. Land, kind of chose this one? Would you like for me to set up a meeting or set something kind of phone conference, something like that up with the real estate commission if I can?
Sure, we would just tell him, yeah, that'd be fine. We tell him what we're thinking and see what they think.
Right.
You're gonna do the real estate commission, how about the, what is that, Builders Association?
Home Building Association?
We need to talk to them.
I mean, of course we can. I mean, the more the merrier. This would be something that would have to go through the state real estate board, I believe, at very minimum. I don't think it would have to go through like a home builder's side of it. But we can always look at it, but just doing more research and maybe we'll find another answer to that. So perhaps if I can set up some kind of phone conference with the three of y'all and some state board members, then we can work from there. Is that something that you all would like for me to do?
That sounds good to me,
Okay,
certainly.
so I'll work on doing that.
And as Mr. Donald and I discussed, that letter would go nicely with the 5306, letting people know, about the setbacks and about you're moving in next to a farm and whatnot. So that letter would go nicely with them. And so speaking of the Right to Farm Act, I did a little research on that and found a wonderful site called the National Ag Law Center. It's administered somehow by the University of Arkansas Division of Ag, and they have a cool little map on there. You can click on any state and read the Right to Farm Acts, and South Carolina's is like 4 pages. Now, it's very simple, and a lot of them are very similar. I looked at a lot of states, and they're very similar. So the structure's there. We just figure out how to apply it, do we want to tweak it or not tweak it, but do we want to write a letter of support to it? Say in Oconee County, passes a resolution to support the state act. It may just bring attention to it if nothing else.
Who was working on that? Which group, which members of y'all working on that?
I think it was Doug, Ed, and myself. again.
Let me say on that, the Right to Farm Act, the county has had dealings with the Right to Farm Act during the zoning process. And, that went over real well for the farmer at the time. And, I won't bring up any issues or names, but, the state's Right to Farm Act is pretty good. It did make a difference in that zoning on, that we were going through. And I don't know, Adam, were you here when that was all?
I've heard about it, but I was not there. No,
Yeah.
sir.
But the Right to Farm Act is that's something that, we don't never need to get away from that. We need that, period. Because if you decide you want to farm, I mean, you need the right to farm. That goes back to, probably in the 1800s, the right to, it's kind of like bearing arms, just right to farm act, and what they did, I mean, from the experience I had with dealing with some of the zoning issues and what was going over at that time, that was the deciding factor in a farmer wanting to farm. And it went over for him. So we can bring that up. I don't know where I need to mention names or anything like that, but I know the county's got records on all that too. But the Right to Farm Act is a very good thing. If we want to keep farming and agriculture in this state, the Right to Farm Act's got to stay, it's got to be up to par in my book.
So I guess there's a couple different routes, and really you all can hammer this one out. So we can look at, similar to, and Ms. Sewell's familiar with this, going to council and having like you did for the beekeepers, why isn't it?
Like a proclamation.
A proclamation in support of that there already is. We can certainly look at that. And that's much more for just getting agriculture out there. Really, that's the purpose of it. You all could look at doing when we write the comp plan, the consultant said, well, what about a county right to farm act? It's kind of a sister document, or it'd be subordinate to the state document. Or you all could find some other way to promote the South Carolina Right to Farm Act in Oconee County. So that's up to y'all.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't think should change. I mean, it wouldn't change anything, but I think that it would put there again, using that same thing, put some teeth into the fact that we are an agricultural community and that we support the state's Right to Farm Act. And putting that in a proclamation or I don't know, I guess that's the word for it, but as a county, they did a similar thing with the Second Amendment not too long back.
Correct.
What the county did. And it just puts and it's, it kind of includes, what you're talking about, Tim, and the Disclosure Act. I think it makes it smoother for those things to come through, and even the development standards as well, that we do support agriculture and the right to farm.
I think it reinforces the state's act, and it brings attention to it once again. And I wouldn't be opposed to writing a proclamation and running it through the board and seeing if we want to send it to council for right to farm
Sure.
emphasis.
I mean, certainly say, it would be more along the lines of sending council a letter in support that, as this is an advisory board, that, if council were to do this as a proclamation, it could be beneficial to agriculture in Oconee County, kind of thing. And then we could include a proclamation if that's what you so all chose to do.
All we want to do then is we're going to make a proclamation. We're going to accept the state. We don't want to change anything that the state's got right now
No.
And I don't think we want to tackle that right now, but
What we want to do is just more or less put it out there that we support this 100% or whatever.
it's already there. It seems like it's low-hanging fruit, as Adam likes to say.
I don't think there's no need to rewrite anything. It's
No.
tried and proven.
No.
So therefore, I think we should just support it. I did have a couple of questions, though, in the new House bill, where you're already farming, is there language that if I pass my farm on to, and it changes ownership, say, family member, someone, whatever, that they still have the same right? They don't get
It's an existing farm.
it's an existing farm, so they are covered. And then with the agricultural, what do we call it? The Disclosure Act, is there any language in that legislation that would bring up to real estate, or is that another, once it passes, that would be separate?
Well, the real estate lobby was heavily involved in these discussions. So was the homeowners association. That's where we get most of our resistance. Anytime we go in with any kind of regulation, reduction requirements of any sort, we have to fight real estate lobby.
Okay,
They are a powerful lobby in South Carolina. They got deep pockets. And so, but you know, they're not unreasonable, not most of them.
right,
I understand they want to sell real estate, and they don't want to attach anything to any real estate that may put a burden on selling a piece of property. I understand that. And we make that clear, just like we've always said with all these regulations, we want to be good neighbors. But you've also got to be a good neighbor.
right.
And realize that we were here first, and then we're just asking you to respect us. That's the language that changed, and that's how it changed, and it was for that purpose.
Okay,
And it is a lot better, when you don't have to make a demand upon somebody
Right.
else. You know, like the reciprocal setback was I'll set back and you set back. But, you know, there again, we gave, we're not asking them to set back, we're gonna set back, we're just gonna say, but when you move in closer, we don't have to set back farther.
right,
So, they didn't give up anything, and we just had to quit giving up when they moved in on us.
right.
So, I think it was a win-win for everybody. The real estate, lobby came out with not having to ask somebody to sit back off the property to build, so it was a win for them. And then, of course, the farmer, is not getting added restrictions enforced upon him and affect his expansion future, so.
So then, in my mind, the Disclosure Act should be not an issue for them. If they're not having to give anything up, as long as they're being honest and doing their jobs, then we don't have an issue down the road.
And the proclamation to just acknowledge the Right to Farm Act, the
Right.
state's Right to Farm Act, I think is a great idea. We have discussed at the state level on improving the state's Right to Farm Act and by strengthening the language just a little bit in a couple of paragraphs. Sometimes it's just a word or two, you know?
Right.
Makes all the difference in the court of law. But anytime you open that up, you give the opposition a chance to have input too, and it may go against you. So the timing is just not right. Right now, our state's Right to Farm Act's been working for us. It worked, as Doug mentioned, it worked here in Oconee County here on more than one occasion. And I know several places throughout the state it has worked, so, if it ain't broken, it don't fix it kind of thing. But if it ever gets into, anybody ever challenges it, then that's when we can go in there and strengthen it.
Thank you.
So, I'll be glad to write a letter of support of the State Right to Farm Act if y'all would like me to, and then I'll forward it to you or forward it to Adam. He can share it however.
So if you all want to do that, we need a motion and a vote, a motion to have the chairman write a letter to county council to ask them to support the South Carolina Right to Farm Act.
I'll make a motion.
Second, if I may.
Not you. I'd prefer someone else to do
All
it,
right.
honestly.
Motion has been made to support or write a letter.
Second.
There we go.
And do we have any discussion on it? I would like to
Could we
add
do it into
proclamation.
a form of like a proclamation or something though, rather than just a letter or, you know, some.
So we could include a proclamation along with it,
With the
but
letter, yeah.
we definitely want to ask them.
Right,
The advisory
right.
side of it.
Okay,
through a letter, ask them via a letter if they would support this proclamation.
They would take, if
There we
it's,
go.
or
There
this
we
letter
go.
supporting this problem.
that's what I was getting at.
That's what I wanted
That's
to.
what I was getting
We
at.
want the proclamation. It's usually pretty easy to do,
Oh, yeah, just
And-
something that,
and that's what we want, the attention for the Farm Act,
I
Farm
didn't
Bill,
wanna just write them a letter.
right, the Farm Act, yes. So,
So Ms. Alexander had a question.
So in our comp plan, it references those points. So is it worded in our comp plan that we're adopting, or has it, that we support the Right to Farm Act? Does that need to be in the wording to that in our,
Well, we was gonna add that it does, there's there's a whole agricultural section of the comp plan that we can certainly include, some references to.
to the Right to Farm Act?
Yes, ma'am.
Just for more clarity that that's part of what we stand for in Oconee County.
Yes, ma'am. We can certainly add something like that to the letter.
yes, sir, I would like to add, I will find and add those as a site or a supporting element. And Mr. Don,
Just a couple of topics, I don't know if you covered them or not. Is a great concern to the state, on the state level with agriculture. One being mental health. The suicide rate amongst farmers has skyrocketed throughout the country. I know we've started an initiative, we've teamed up with Clemson University and some Ag South and Ag First Bank and that kind of thing. All 4 or 5 entities has put in a large sum of money to start this program up, and it's to have classes and seminars and have someone that can talk with farmers that may be feeling the mental stress, just overloading them. You know, there's a lot of things a man can take, but losing a farm that's been in his family for centuries is hard to take. And we have that situation going on a lot, so there's a lot of mental illness out there amongst farmers, and we're trying to come up with ways that we can combat that. The second thing is rural broadband. You know, we're at a great disadvantage in the rural parts of the counties because we don't have access to quality broadband. And it's really become a hot topic since our schools have been closed down now, and the students don't have the access. Well, farmers have been screaming that for 5 years, but now they recognize it, and the CARES Act, I think, put $500 million into rural broadband. 50 million, I'm sorry, 50 million. But you know how much Oconee County spent on lines that's in the ground, some not even being utilized. And so 50 million for the whole state is not a drop in the bucket. But that's one thing that we're really pushing right now is rural broadband. So Oconee County, you guys and Oconee County Council could help in promoting that. I don't know that we have the mental health issues here in this county as maybe they do in some of the other parts of the state. At least I haven't heard of any, thank God. But it is happening. And I don't know, we had, and I can't remember their names now, but they came from Clemson University. 2 people came from Clemson University, and we discussed, matter of fact, we just put in money. They really just starting this program up. They just needed financial support, and we were glad to do that and reach out to other entities that would help support. So that is ongoing. It's being created, and it's already sounds like it's been successful. So that's 2 things we just need to make people aware of that's going on in the agriculture community. Mental health and rural broadband.
my favorite question is, what can we do to help? Because I don't have the answer.
Well, we just got to make council aware of these things. I think the initiative has already been set on the mental health. They can always use financial support or facilities or doctors, you know, psychologists, anybody that's willing to help in that capacity. And of course, the rural broadband is just, you know, we got a lot of areas in Oconee County. that needs attention. And, you know, as close as I am to the interstate and major highways, I got nothing. DSL, ultra-fast DSL, less than 1 megabyte per second. Won't even run Windows 10. And so I had to go to a satellite type deal, you know, and, because that's all I have. That's all the offer I have. AT&T's been telling me they're gonna run a line out there for 5 years, and they ain't got the fiber optics out there yet. And I understand why. They need enough customers to support it. But, the federal government's putting in some money, and now they're fighting over it. That's what I understand. The different providers are now fighting over that 50 million.
And a lot of times that money gets sifted down and watered down and it goes,
Yeah, and does us no good to have optic lines in the ground and no provider. So, I think Oconee County's probably ahead of the game just a little bit. They just need to follow through with what they started.
at least during the storm, we saw them move the buses around to different places, have a mobile
Yeah.
hotspot or whatever you
Yeah,
call it.
yeah.
But, and they come up to the fire station here, the general store, to get it here. But you're right, we should support them and talk to our council people about it when we get a chance. Okay, we have a motion to write a letter and a proclamation to go with it. And a second, do we have any further discussion on it? I think we're pretty well in agreement. I think it's a pretty good idea, and I'm willing to write it. So, everybody in favor? All right. Passes unanimously. We'll get that. I'll have that to you at least by the next meeting, if not next week or so.
All right, we'll work on it, sir. And I'll provide a copy to y'all as soon as it's available.
Okay, number 11, non-traditional and specialty ag issues, assistance, excuse me. I think that was the topic of how to transfer land to the younger generation, how we can help or educate folks, is that?
I believe, so the way it was written out, where I pulled it out of the comprehensive plan, was that oftentimes there are farmers who have plenty of farmland and no one to pass it on to, whether family members or just no one interested in it, they want to see it stay in agriculture. There's a lot of different programs, especially as found in Oregon, Idaho, I think Montana as well, where they set up, you can essentially sublease your farm. So Mr. Hollifield, if you had like someone who's interested in a young farmer and you had 5 acres that you weren't farming or that could be farmed, and some way to sublease it. Now, you could just sublease it on your own, but there's not a good gathering of farmers who are willing and interested parties thereof. So because the most expensive part in startup of agriculture is gonna be your cost of dirt after, of course, build your house and stuff. So, that's kind of what that question was about. Now, it could be other things as well. Non-traditional and specialty ag is also, could be anything really, just the non-traditional, not row crop, not your standard feedlot stuff, but non-traditional things. But we were looking at how to get young farmers and retiring farmers networked together. So there's a continuity of farming on that property.
That's including like small specialty mushrooms, organics, right?
Whatever.
So I think I'd ask the ladies, it just happened to fall out this way, it's nothing gender oriented or anything, but I think I'd ask the ladies to work on that one. And the one other, there was 4 items that were on the top 10 list. There was 4 items. One of them was the right to farm, and one was the disclosure, I believe, and the other 2 were the non-traditional farming and one other. But I'd asked if the ladies would like to work on that as a subcommittee.
One thing with the, when you're talking about what you're just talking about, I've been, in discussions with some young farmers, and there is a, desire to expand. Some of them have some small space, but they would like to expand. Now, I'm not sure, I think there's a lot of vacant farmland in the county that probably is like older people that have a farm and may not can farm anymore. But I would like to be able to figure out how to get those people that's the whole point, is to get them connected.
That's right.
So I don't have a good handle necessarily on the farmland part of it. And I've also thought that the county has a lot of property that maybe not necessarily, lease it to a cattle farmer, but at the very least have a pollinator garden or something of that nature instead of just an abandoned buildings or whatever. But I have been talking to a few of the young farmers that I know that would be very interested in a lease situation. So I've been working on it a little bit.
Can you do further research on that and just figure out how to connect
I'm
them?
continuing that. I've got another situation going on. It's an ongoing situation too that falls in this category as well. But not that far along yet to talk about it.
Gotcha. But no, that's perfect. Exactly. I mean, that's what it is we can find, because we don't have to invent anything. All this has been done. We're not creating anything new. So if we take what they've done out west or wherever and somehow find a way to just dial it in for Oconee County, then we can certainly make that work. If we can set up some kind of program, or at very least, put person A and person B together.
Clemson has a program, but it seems like it's more people down the lower part of the state where there's a lot larger farmland areas, like down around, Florence and all that mid-state area. But we're not excluded, so it's something that we could get involved with.
Excellent. And something else as a matter of just kind of discussing it, is that I'm also the complaint department for the county as well, for a lot of the land use complaints and uses. And I've received over the course of the last 6 months, probably at least 5 complaints where neighbors like, someone's mowing down the forest. And I'm like, well, let's go check it out. And it turns out to be, it's an older, they've all 5 been unused farmland. They were field, and it wasn't a forest, they were just, scrubbed, like 15-foot tall pine trees, just kind of just growed up over the course of time. And the farmers were out there like, hey, we see a need for beef, and they're all for beef too, for beef cattle running. So it's really interesting to see that some of the underutilized farmland is starting to be kind of dialed back in, whether that's because of the corona or it's because of the corona. That would be my complete guess based upon no fact, but I think it's right. So there's definitely a need for farmland and farmers being located. So that being said, can we maybe get together, the 4 of us, over the phone or some other way, and try to figure out some kind of strategic plan as to how to accomplish this?
Yeah, I kind of looked at that problem in a little different light, because I thought we needed to really identify what some of those products are, the specialty products, and what could be done in Oconee County, for example, what could be grown and what is being done now. And then figure out a way to educate the public that these are possibilities for them. So, that could be done through, just local news outlets and articles like, did you know that Oconee County can grow mushrooms or something like that. And so, to make it, to those young farmers in particular that you were talking about, let them know if you've got land, these are some of the things that you could do on small acreage. And, I just went through, I had like 10 things just right off the top of my head that are specialty products. But they need to know, how it's done or how it started, that kind of thing.
It's interesting you say that. Most of them that I talk to are more into specialty crops.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So-
But sometimes it's on a smaller plot of
They're on a
land.
smaller, and they are looking to expand is the,
Right.
because sometimes, especially like winter crops, need more space,
Right.
really, like when you're
wheat
talking.
or something.
Like, yeah, you're talking about collards or kale and that kind of thing that need, that you can grow in the fall and all. And, so they're the ones that want the extra space. And, but don't have enough, that can't necessarily buy the extra space right now, but would be interested in leasing it.
And I thought maybe since we're putting together this the guide now, the farmer resource guide, maybe that we could come up with some names of people that might be willing, to help farmers that want a specialty crop. They could go to. For example, like the beekeepers.
Yeah, that's
or-
another thing. I know a lot of people that don't have a place to beekeep,
Right.
like me.
I recall from one of the listening sessions that several spoke, one of the earliest speakers and another speaker talked about aquaculture and aquaponics and the raising of the plants was the easy part, marketing the fish was the hard part. And so we can discuss another time how to improve marketing, because that's been on a topic I've been involved in with beef processing and poultry, swine and so forth, about not an adequate processing. I'm told that Blaylock's is not taking anybody till March. And so, anyway, next March for slaughtering. I don't know how that is, but
March of next year?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what one person told me, so, I'm just, for what it's worth, I'm passing that along, I don't know, but we don't have, but two processors in the county, and they're not certified for USDA sales, they sell to individuals, and that's all they can do. Maybe all they wanna do, I don't know, but anyway, let's look into the specialty and assistance, specialty agricultural assistance, and see how we can plug the people that wanna do it with the people that have the assets and the land to do it with, see if we can figure out how to get those two together. And leasing seems like that's just an old traditional way of, hey, can I lease your field and grow some soybeans? And that's kind of pretty easy to do, so that's been going on, so maybe just a matter of advertising and talking it up.
Sure, so we'll work that over the course of that week, or the course of that month.
And is that good? Victory Gardens. We talked about some displays, some small container plants and some displays, telling people how they can grow things in a small area. But since we're probably not gonna have a fair this year to show that, I don't know when, we don't know when we can showcase that, but that's something we can plan on, and when the time comes, we can have the, what do they call it, the hay bale something, and the containerized tomatoes
Do it
and
virtually, I guess. We can have a virtual.
square foot garden.
Right, and we had all these great ideas the last time. I think we need to come up with a plan for that, as far as, we will reopen at some point, whether it's tomorrow or in 3 or 4 months from now, or whatever that time frame is, we will reopen. And I think, since we're not open right now, then might as well plan for it. This also could be an advertising push as well. I mean, because that's really how I know of Victory Gardens, is because there's iconic artwork from Victory Gardens that was put out during World War II, or World War I and World War II. So perhaps we look at it from that perspective as well, is that showing people what they can do is one part of it, but advertising it out there and putting it out there is a whole other side of it. Perhaps we can look at that as well. So, but which ones of you, the board members, were involved with that?
I think again, it was maybe Kim, Sandra, Debbie.
So maybe we can speak about that as well. I'll try to forward a good time for the 4 of us to talk and kind of hash out the
We
things.
need to include Amanda in on these too.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly in the,
She was on it, I'm sorry, I marked Marlene out when Marlene resigned and put in Amanda, so that's right, she's,
And she's not here, so we can put her on all the boards.
All of
she could be president of it.
Yeah, really.
That's right.
That sounds like a farm bureau meeting.
That's right.
That's right.
You're not there,
That's
you're on
right.
it. If you're not careful, we'll make the chairman next.
Well, speaking of that, Food Policy Council, is there anything going with them?
I don't know exactly about the food policy part of it, but, we are, well, I'll say that we are making some progress with the, farmers markets. In case y'all didn't know, we have a midweek market now on Tuesdays
I read that.
at Foothills, Heritage Market. And I believe Mr. Hollifield can tell you it went pretty good too, this past season, even though it rained.
It was all right. We had a small crowd, but, it rained twice, so
Yeah,
it worked out pretty good.
yeah, it's,
Saturday was really good.
yeah, so
I
we've
think the
really,
Saturdays have been really good down there. Well, they are. It's not me. I'm just a vendor. The building is kind of small. We're kind of running out of room. That's the big thing right now, so they're working on doing that, maybe putting up a few tents and, getting it a little bit bigger. Because we got a new building, they put in a new building, but it's not quite as big as the older one.
no, it's bigger,
No, it's not as wide.
it's longer, which is what
It
we
is,
wanted.
it ain't but 3 foot.
No.
Growing pains, that's a
Yeah.
good problem to have.
Well,
But we got a lot of vendors and that, was there Saturday, so. To me, it's, it's going over real well. Out here, Walhalla's doing real well too.
yeah, they are, they have.
Their market's picked up and doing pretty good too, so. I don't know about Seneca, hadn't been there to that one, so. But the markets are doing good, people are coming out and supporting them, and that's one thing I was worried about, because I do a lot of retail sale in my business. And to see how things are gonna react with the coronavirus and everything, how that's gonna affect, the local markets. I'm well pleased to see that the farmers markets and the people are really coming out. And most people are, doing their thing and doing what you're supposed to do, but you've got a few that don't, but we have, I noticed that there's a good demand for local produce and fruits and vegetables, so that's looking good. The Apple Festival being canceled this year, that's gonna put a little hurt, not much, but that's gonna, it's a big thing in Oconee County, same as with Oktoberfest or whatever. Like the Farm Bureau this year, we're not having the annual Farm Bureau meeting with the dinner and all because the coronavirus and everything, because we got a lot of older people like myself that goes, so. And our convention, we normally have it at Myrtle Beach and all, we put that on hold too, so, the virus is, I thought maybe it would be an impact, but it's not. It seems like now they're wanting the fresh fruit and vegetables and they're coming out to get them, and I'm hoping they continue right on through all the way to November and Thanksgiving Day, because that's when I close, but we'll start opening up in August at our fruit stand, so. And I have people coming after peaches and I don't even open up. They just come to the house, and so that's good, But as far as the markets goes, that looks good. It's looking good.
That's great.
I think Debbie did more of them than I have, but.
Yeah, well,
Good deal.
unfortunately, I had to pivot a little bit, but I'm doing some marketing, some things there that I did at my store, and trying out a few things. I actually have a garden. I don't know if it's a victory garden, but it's a little bit different, but I'm doing herbs and a few other things, but I am on the farmers market part that came out of the food summit. That's what I've been working toward, and that was one of the things that we specified, that we wanted a midweek market. So we've got that, we did hit that. I've had several people say that a Thursday market in a different place, and hopefully we're working on maybe just for this month have maybe a pop-up market maybe in the Salem area. So.
Cool. Well, write your articles, write all the good news you can think of to editors, Dear Willie, whomever. Talk to your council members, and anything like that that's changed, that's newsworthy, send it to Mr. Adam and he can post it on the whatever, or I believe the Farm Center Heritage Market agreed, or we've asked them to, if we can post on their calendar.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So send the news to somebody about good events coming up, which are getting fewer and farther between. But they will come back. We will come back, and I'm glad to hear the market's doing well. It's an outdoor event. Distance, wash your hands, wait in line 6 feet apart. Thank y'all. You got any other closing comments? I don't hear any, so motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All right.